Today's COVID update is brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price but stay for the service.
And welcome back to Open Your Eyes on this lovely Wednesday morning, and we're now moving into our first segment for the morning actually. And the first segment is actually to understand the new regulations SI 62. Now we've got the pro in to tell us about it. We've got attorney at law Audrey Matura. She's on the screen. Actually, she'll be on the screen to tell us all about understanding this new regulation. Audrey, good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you guys?
We are doing excellent. I'll tell you what, I am loving the colors. You're looking lovely this morning.
I'm trying to stay bright. You know, this lockdown is not easy.
Oh.
For most of us, that much I could tell you. But we want to venture off into this, and we want to delve into it as early as possible. There are a lot of people who might not understand, or who they don't understand when it comes to an SI or the new regulation. So first, for me, I want to know, what are the new regulations? Let's jump on there of SI 62. What are these regulations?
Well, you know, some of the things remain the same. For example, the curfew, but there are actually many provisions that are lax, right?
Yeah.
I think some of the highlights that we can talk about that people need to understand is that more businesses are open again. For example, the transportation can take place now.
Yeah.
So public transportation to carry out all the provisions under Rule 5. Rule 5 is the one that tells you that you can go out to purchase essential goods, you can go out to attend to emergencies, to medical appointments, to go to the vet. If you're an essential worker, if you're a person who are home care provider and you're going to provide service to an elderly or a sick person, and the details of the workers, not the essential workers. So what it has done is given a little bit more freedom. For example, remember the past 2 Sundays, prior to this Sunday, we were on almost full lockdown, except for the essential workers. We actually now have more freedom to move about. Of course, there are key things that remain closed.
Yeah.
And the opening hours have extended. So let me just not go over it too briefly, because I think people need to know. Because this is what people keep asking. So remember, before, most of the places were closed until 4 o'clock.
Yes.
Well, the good news is that under Regulation 9, they're saying, look, we can open up now from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m. Imagine. So that's far more freedom, far more liberty to move around.
And this one specifically helps with things like supermarkets, where people
Right.
can go, and they're already announcing that they're opening till later.
Yeah, so the ones who can open from 5 a.m. till 7 p.m. are the gas stations, if you will, depots, the LPG suppliers, the LPG depots, and the LPG distributors. The agro-processors, you know, those are the food manufacturers and the factories, but carbonated and other beverages, including spirits, but excluding potable water. Agricultural aquaculture farms, so that's very important. The farms have always been open, but they had a limitation. Now they can open up to 7 p.m. You can go fishing for livelihood and sustenance, but not including sport fishing and leisure fishing. The waste disposal companies can be open from 5 a.m. to 7 p.m., as does the productive sector. The public transportation providers, the construction sites, that's private and commercial, and the bakeries and tortilla factories. They have wider opening hours now. Then there's another group that can open until 8 a.m. So that group I just read to you is from 5 a.m. The group that opens from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. are the pharmacies, the markets, that's where you go buy your agricultural products or your meats and fruits and vegetables and fish. The convenience stores now can open from 8 o'clock till 7. Those include food stores, supermarkets, meat shops, the butchers, distributors of carbonated and other beverages, including spirits, but not potable. Oh, and this time including potable water and food. Then the other places that can be open are the hotel and villas, but remember, they're only open because for maintenance, not open to the public, so you can't book a hotel yet. And they're also open if they're providing food, but only for drive-through pickup or in deliveries. Then the storefronts of the outlets for essential businesses, like the public utilities companies, are open solely for the purpose of paying bills. So you can't go connect and disconnect and transfer, and so it's only to pay bills. And then the financial institution, all the banks and credit unions and money lending institutions like MoneyGram and, and Western Union, the transfer institutions, those are open, including pawn shops, as well as mechanic shops. So this is another one. Remember before they had curtailed mechanic shops? Well, now mechanic shops, garages, and auto parts stores can open from 8 in the morning till 7 in the night. And then all food establishments that are establishments, not street sides, not tacos vendors, but establishments, diners, restaurants, saloons, they can open also from 8 in the morning to 7 in the night, but only to do delivery, drive-through, and takeout.
Yeah.
And then the international delivery services like Amerijet and DHL, and so they're also able to open up to 7.
Okay.
Domestic delivery services of pickup like BPMS and so, and social organizations and volunteer groups operating under the auspices of the ministry can open. They had to make that specifically because I think they all carried a news item where people were just packed up, and because the place would have closed by 4, clearly it was crowded. But now they have wider opening hours. And wholesalers of goods and services that support those businesses we already mentioned can then open. And of course, the Belize and Tropical Education Center, which I'm told is only open for a research area.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then hardware stores are open, but not the front store, the storefront, not the storefront, only for deliveries.
Yeah.
So that's another group. Then
So-
there's another group that is open from 9 in the morning till 4, and those are most of the government offices that are listed at Schedule 2. And it's a whole list of them. But 24 hours now, which is not different, are the food mills, the citrus and sugar and other food production factories, oil production, the port operations, because ports are open 24/7 for loading and unloading and deliveries, and the public utilities and independent energy producers, which provide energy to public utilities. So that's the operational, the production section of BTL and BEL and all those other places that exist that provide that kind of services. So those are the places that can open, and clearly the extended hours that they can open.
Can I get some clarification there? So 2 things. One, there's this distinction that is made between storefront and deliveries. What does that mean? It means that the physical store, you can't walk in and go and browse, right?
Right. Storefront, meaning walk in, have a cashier there, it's open to the public. That's not open.
Okay.
But when they say for deliveries, it means clearly the shutters will be down. And it's for deliveries, like for example, they said construction sites can open now. So the person from the construction site won't walk in there and go pick out what they want. They will call. They would have had some hardware they're doing
Make
business
an
with
order.
anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they'll call and order, and then those items will be delivered to their site for them.
Okay.
So that's those are the places that are open.
Yeah.
And I think what I want to mention very clearly, because there's going to be problem between yesterday and today, there's already been problem brewing. This statutory instrument, if you all go through it, it's important to note that the only person who can sign this into law is the Governor General. So I want you all to see, that's it, the signature of the Governor General.
Yes, we're seeing it clearly.
The reason I bring that to your attention is that in San Pedro, there's a problem. I saw a press release in San Pedro from the mayor and the area representative, and apparently they've been on Reef Radio promoting their own regulations. Their press release says that based on Statutory Instrument number 62 of 2020, which came into effect April 26, 2020, the San Pedro Town Council and Honorable Manuel Heredia Jr. and the EOC have made modifications to the statutory instrument to further ensure the safety of all residents in San Pedro and Burgess Key. Let me tell you this. No minister, no mayor, no committee can make any modifications. They cannot change the law. And the reason I'm bringing this up early in the program is because not only have they changed the law by saying that they will change the opening hours, but while the SI 62 says clearly that ice cream shops, laundromats, storefronts of hardwares cannot be open. the mayor and the area representative in San Pedro has changed the law, and now they're saying that laundromats can open from 8 in the morning to 3, ice cream shops from 8 in the morning to 3, hardware store fronts from 7 in the morning to 3. They've also said that they are allowing the taco stands them and the fruit stands them, the street vendors, to be operating from 6 in the morning. That is absolutely illegal. They even went a step further in what they have done. I just read to you the opening hours for the pharmacies and the grocery stores and the tortilla factories and the banks. And if you notice, all of them, well, the first section was from 5 in the morning till 7 in the night. The other one from 8 in the morning till 7 in the night, and the other one was from 9 in the morning to 4. They have changed opening hours. They're telling grocery stores that they can only open from 7 in the morning to 3 p.m. That is illegal. Those stores can open from 8 in the morning until 7 p.m. If any police go close you down or any town council worker go close you down, it is illegal.
Or even the opposite, if you open at 7 when the regulation says 8.
Exactly. It gets worse, Marlene. They say pharmacies can only open from 8 in the morning to 6 p.m. No, pharmacies can open from 8 in the morning to 7 p.m. The tortilla factories and bakeries, they've decided that they will close down the tortilla factories and bakeries because they're saying those can only open from 6 in the morning to 2 p.m. That is not so. Their side is clear. You can open from 5 in the morning until 7 in the night. They have gone a step further. They're telling the banks can only open till 3 o'clock. No, the law says the banks can open up to 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
But it's
and
interesting.
butane and gas companies, they're saying can only open from 6 a.m. to 2 p.m. That's not true. Those can open from 5 in the morning till 7 the night. No, this is problem. This is problem because I'm worried that soon we'll see like what's happening in the U.S. where someone to do what they want and start taking to the street.
Yeah, but they have different laws than we do.
I know, but I'm just saying we can reach there simply because of this, Marlene. It's one thing if the average man tells the police, oh, sir, I never know the law and I'm sorry or knew it and tried their luck. But this is an official release from the mayor, the town council, and the area representative. Now, these are people in political office and also in authority as local government and central government. Yet they're saying this, and let me tell you what's said about it. I posted it on my page on Facebook, and a lot of people agree that that's the law, nobody's above the law. But there are actually those people in San Pedro or elsewhere who have had the audacity to defend the breaking of the law. That is scary to me as an attorney because I myself, I feel constrained, but I know I am not above the law, and for your political operative to act above the law, that is scary, and that they will actually promote it. And it's both the San Pedro Sun and the Hamburgers Today newspapers that have actually published it without questioning. And a media host should not do that.
Let me backtrack a bit here because I feel that this issue has been addressed before. So it's interesting that these types of errors are still being made. When Key Cocker wanted to implement their own regulations at that time, and I think Sartaneja was also talking about it as well, it was, I think it was the Attorney General who explicitly stated that essentially you cannot create your own laws and that the SIs that are created or the powers are only, as you said, approved by the Governor General.
Exactly.
So we have, this was just a month ago that this very same issue was addressed for different municipalities, of course.
Yes. The government issued a statement then condemning what the chairlady of Kikaka wanted to do. So I'm hoping that the government this morning also issues a statement against the mayor of San Pedro and the area representative who sits in the National Assembly. And he knows that the Governor General is the ultimate authority on these regulations or should know. I mean, the problem we're having is there's a lot of dissent and there are people writing like, Uno stop worry about San Pedro when San Pedro gone from lockdown a month ago. Uno had uno freedom. Others writing that San Pedro is not a part of the country, so San Pedro could be it's that far how they've gone.
Well, and I think that is the biggest concern. The biggest concern is that mixed messages to people does absolutely no, it doesn't do anyone any favor.
Yeah.
Because if any individual is arrested in San Pedro for not following through with the regulations, you know, they're going to be the one responsible. It's not going to be any official who put out a release. So,
And how far they've gone, Marlene. You know, people in other districts are saying, well, if San Pedro could make their own regulations, our municipality
Yeah.
should.
Yeah.
well, we do
This
hope
is
that
bad.
this
This is bad.
I do hope that this issue is addressed sooner than later. But, you know, the underlying situation here is that we are facing a lot of changes very rapidly. You know, we're at SI 62. And
Yes.
every time there are
And
new
we started with SI 38, Marlene.
Yeah.
So that tells you a lot.
and so every time there are changes that are happening, there's a whole new messaging that has to go out because we need to understand, we the regular public who may not necessarily read the regulations, and if we read it, may not understand,
Understand it, yeah.
the fine print in the legal language. I know,
Yes.
for example, when SI 55, and to be clear, that was the lockdown regulation, the 2-week strict
Yes.
no movement policy. When that was lifted, one of the first questions that I started to get was, what does that mean for the 4 o'clock curfew for the children? And then
Yeah.
there was a slip up because there was an original press release that went out from the press office saying that the curfew was 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. It was changed later in the day to clarify that it was 4 p.m. to 6
It was 4
to 8
p.m.
a.m. Sorry. But I mean, this is because all the changes are happening, which is based on how we're doing in terms of our COVID-19 response. So
Yes.
I think that we have to be as clear as possible, and the messaging has to be as uniformed as possible
Yeah.
so that there's no gray area, because you don't want anyone facing any unnecessary charges or fines because they didn't get the message.
But we have to keep in mind that right now, SI 62 is only valid till the end of this month. you
That's
know.
right.
It's for the entire
Yep.
country, and the end of the month is right here Thursday.
Yeah.
Yep.
As you all saw and reported in your newscast on Monday and on Tuesday, there's a debate as to whether to extend the the state of emergency. The state of emergency has been extended
Yeah.
by law. But I think one of the clarifications I need to make to people is that not because the state of emergency is extended, it means that the lockdown is extended. There's a difference.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And this is what is worrying people. They think because the state of emergency extends for 2 months, it means that the lockdown is for 2 months. No,
No.
you can actually have a lockdown without a state of emergency. And if we had any doubt about that, remember, the government had passed a lockdown using the Quarantine Act, which is different from the Constitution.
Yes.
They had passed a lockdown provisions under the Quarantine Act on the 25th of March. However, by the 1st of April, they had to then declare a state of emergency. And then they got rid of the quarantine
Order.
provisions, which was number 38, SI number 38. And then they created regulations only under the Constitution. When they created the regulations under the Constitution, from then on, it's only that they have been using.
Yeah.
Because the lockdown under the Quarantine Act is usually regulations passed by the minister, debated in the National Assembly, but it also has a provisions that the Director of Health Services, who is considered the quarantine authority, can proceed to pass rules based on regulations already approved by the minister. In cases of emergency, they use that for a brief moment, but nonetheless, they use it. So that is proof that without a state of emergency, you can have a lockdown. At that time when that was done, the state of emergency was only in San Pedro, not the entire country. The 1st of April, the state of emergency came into the entire country. And then there was what I call a very lax partial lockdown, because certain things were locked down, but not tightly locked down.
The start of
A
April.
lot of places could have still operated like no. So you see, we are going
Yeah.
back to where we were then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hardware stores are open.
Yeah.
They can open till 7. 30 factories, bakeries, public transportation is getting back online.
Yeah.
Even though you can only be on public transportation if you're doing what the regulation says. That is, you're traveling for essentials as an essential worker, you're going to get food, you're going to deal with an emergency and stuff like that. I think what they failed to do, and they should have done, is if you're relocating to your place of origin or your place of work. Why I say that? For example, in San Pedro, a lot of people got stuck there because that's not where they originally would live. And during hard times, they would go back home to their town, village, or city. Those people they keep texting me and say, can I travel? I tell them, yes, you can. You just have to have some proof of what you're doing, or a letter that you've been terminated or not working and you're going back to your place of origin.
Yes.
It should have been clear in the SI that you can do that, because people are afraid. So those are some of the improvements they could have made. I think there was room for improvement, but it wasn't considered. Now the problem we'll have, or the concern we should have, is what will be the regulations come 1st of May?
And I'm glad you said that, because yesterday in his interview, the Attorney General clearly articulated that we are not completely sure what these, well, he didn't say what these regulations are going to be. He said they can be more relaxed or they can be more strict, and that they will continue to change as time progresses. Now, I wanna just get in something here, and I get a sense that collectively, and the majority, and even if you look at the numbers of the people who've been arrested, the majority of this country is adhering. This message that seems to go out like everybody wants to be a rule breaker, it's wrong.
It's wrong.
The number of people that have been arrested clearly show that you are looking at almost 99% of the country that is adhering to the rules.
Yes, yes.
So I think we understand why it's necessary, but clarity is always good in being able to just know if I have to do something at a particular hour that is allowed for, that I can and I won't be worried. Just that level of certainty at this time would be comforting.
Well, you see, Marlene, that is why, because I think we've had fairly good compliance considering everything that's going on, and considering our cultural and attitude towards freedom and being out.
Yeah.
I think we've done fairly good, and that is why the San Pedro official release from 2 leaders, the mayor and the area representative, now really slaps us in our face from having good compliance to now encouraging non-compliance.
Did it say a start date?
And people, and what's that?
I haven't seen the report, but so is there a start date that is indicated there?
Yes, immediately.
Oh, it says effective immediately?
Immediately. That's their regulations, they're saying. I mean, they had another announcement. They went a step further also and said that if you want your business to open, you can call the town council, as if though the town council have the authority to authorize that.
Yeah.
It says right here, it says, however, any deli, taco stand, and food shop business wanting to open will need to visit the San Pedro Town Council to provide information on how it will be working at the establishments. Now, these stands, these taco stands and food stands are street vendors.
Yeah.
It is different if you actually have your establishment.
Yeah.
And that is, I'm not saying that maybe eventually those people shouldn't open, you know. And I'm not saying maybe there's good reason, you know. But the thing is, it is not them who make the laws.
Yeah.
We have to fall under a uniform law. What they should have done is lobby central government. And the same way central government had made special regulations for San Pedro when they first got the first case confirmed there, they could have made special regulations saying these provisions are not going to apply to you all. Nothing is wrong with that.
Yeah.
But what is wrong is for them to think that they can be above the law. And there is a section in this, and it's important for me to read this section. Section 20 of SI 62. And I'll read it so that people know why they should obey this law.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter that the mayor and the area representative and anybody telling you disobey the law. It says, every person who contravenes any of the provisions of these regulations, so those people who will go open their stores and they shouldn't, they're contravening these regulations. Or any person who incites or attempt to incite any other person to contravene these regulations. So what is happening is the mayor, the town council, the area representative, and the emergency operations center on San Pedro are inciting or attempting to incite other persons to contravene these regulations.
Yeah.
And if they are arrested and charged, they, on summary conviction, are liable to a fine of $5,000 or to imprisonment for 2 years.
Wow.
They are not above the law. They can't be inciting. So it's one thing that they could say, oh, but the people should know better what the law is. By issuing that release, they're inciting places and persons to open their establishments, to disobey what your opening hours.
Yeah.
That is absolutely wrong, and I'm calling on the Attorney General to address it.
You know, I'd wonder at this point what the situation is on the island, because we did mention.
Well, the people must be confused.
At this point, I'm sure that's the situation. But are there tacos vendors on the street side selling their tacos because they've listened to the release? But at the same time, we've got our national authorities who could eventually do something about it.
Well, they also promoted it on Reef Radio. Anyway, I flagged it on my Facebook page, and I noticed that the commissioner made a comment an hour ago, and hear what the commissioner said. Because I had asked him, Commissioner, what will your police do? Will they obey SI 62 or will they obey the mayor and the area representative? His answer was, we have one country and one central government. There is currently in force one state of emergency that governs the entire country. Therefore, those measures being implemented in San Pedro are inconsistent with the state of emergency and are illegal and non-enforceable. I hope that the people in authority there are reading that. I have gotten a lot of personal attacks, nasty attacks for bringing it to the forefront, but I can live with that. Because I know the rule of law is no one is above the law. The poor police in San Pedro can't be expected to implement what the politicians are telling them. The police in San Pedro has to implement regulation SI 62.
And so there's no room for this type of confusion either. So what is your advice?
And we're so close to the end, you know, like, let's try keep it together till the end. We're so close to the end. For all you know, come first of me. So what's the Attorney General will announce lax provisions. For all you know, I'm not saying that will be, you know, but it's chaotic, I would say.
What's your advice to San Pedro residents this morning who are waking up and thinking, should I go out, not go out? What's your advice?
My advice is very simple. All of you clearly have access to internet or some kind of medium. You have to follow SI 62. SI 62 is in simple language. Go read, if you don't read anything else, read Regulation 5 and 9. You can find this SI on the Government of Belize Press Office website, or you can just Google.
Or it's on their Facebook
62.
too.
Yes, you can Google SI 62 State of Emergency Belize, and it will pop up. All you need to read is Regulation 5 and Regulation 9. And in case you don't want to obey, just go and read Regulation 20 so that you know the consequences. Because it has to be that we operate in such a way that the government will be saying, you know what, people have been complying. We can trust them. Let us relax it a bit. Under the provisions that the San Pedro authorities are proposing, I think they made a very good proposal where they said you must wear a mask if you go into any public place. I think that's a good proposal. But the point is, it's not if it's a good or not good proposal. The point is that go make your presentation to central government and obey the law as it is right now. And as leaders, political leaders and elected leaders, lead by example and obey the law. It's simply that. If they don't like what they have, I mean, Mayor Guerrero and Mr. Manuel Heredia are UDP supporters. The Attorney General is under UDP government administration. You have a one-on-one connection, call them and said, you know, these are our recommendations, but in the interim, don't create panic, don't create chaos, don't
create confusion.
And confusion.
Because it's only the residents that are going to feel the consequences. Audrey, though, I wanted to get in the other regulations before we run out of time.
Okay.
So I know, and I really hope that people have heard your the concern that has been raised. I think the fact that the commissioner has responded means that some of the powers that be are aware of the situation now. But let's
Yes.
go back to the kids' curfew for a second. So with 62 in place,
It's still in place.
the curfew, which was issued separately, the curfew for children,
Yes.
is still in place.
It's still in place. That's from 8 in the morning till 4 in the afternoon. And that's good, you know?
Yeah, yeah.
At this point, although we've not seen a lot of cases or heard that kids are the ones affected,
Yeah.
it may be because in every jurisdiction that I've listened to the news, one thing they've made sure that the first people they pulled out of the public domain were the kids when they closed the schools.
Yeah.
And they immediately started homeschooling in some instances where it was possible. And there was immediate provisions not to have the kids out.
Yeah.
I've seen one or two parents take their kids out. I mean, I know the kids want a break. Nothing is wrong with that, but you know, don't do it for long and don't take them. If you take them for a little spin while you go shop, you know,
Leave them
take
in the
some
vehicle.
other adult that will keep them in the vehicle. So
Yeah.
if you don't have to take them out, don't take them out. But the good news is that kids are not the ones being largely affected,
Yes.
and it may be because they're not exposed. But for now, we have to keep that curfew.
All right.
I think that's a good idea.
And,
So that remains in place, Marlene.
and as you said very clearly, this conversation and the regulations that you're outlining at this moment, they're only valid for one more day.
I think what's monumental though that hadn't occurred before is that many government offices are open.
Yeah.
For example, people are saying, "Will the post office be open?" Yes, the post office is now open.
Yeah.
So for people to know, even the transport department is open.
Yeah.
Why is that important? It's important because during the lockdown, those transport department was not open, so you could not license your vehicle. So there were people who were driving around without a licensed vehicle, which is dangerous.
Yeah.
But given the circumstances, there had to be some kind of consideration under the principles of law called the doctrine of necessity. Out of necessity, if you have to use your vehicle, use it even though it does not have a license, and there would have been a waiver on you, although it wasn't explicitly said. Clearly, you can't say why you don't have a license yet the place is closed. Transport department is open now, and it's open from from 9 in the morning till 4, because that's what the regulation says, that those in Schedule 2, and Schedule 2 is the one that says Department of Transport. Schedule 2 is telling you that those offices are open now from 9 to 4, as is the courts. Remember, the courts had closed down. Well, under this new provision, it would seem, my interpretation is that you can now visit the courts. I'm sure they will still be dealing mostly with emergency matters.
Yeah.
But there's an opening hour now. Even the Ministry of Human Development and Social Transformation, their offices are open from 9 in the morning to 4. Why is that important? It's important because at first, only approved social workers in case of real emergency were allowed to be out.
Okay.
Now you can go to the office and make complaints. Also, the department, the Ministry of Works is open again. Before it wasn't. The Vital Statistic Unit is open. Now that is important because remember, that's where you get your birth certificate. You go register births, you go register deaths, you go register marriages. It's not always just to get certificates. And very important, the tax department is open. Remember, for a brief moment there, it was closed and we weren't paying taxes. And unfortunately, we have not had a system online where we could pay taxes online across the board. I'm sure there's something, but it's not across the board. Not everybody has it.
And I think
And
the
so-
income tax returns with you the end of April as well.
Yes,
So
yes.
now that they're open, people
And the
can go do
Treasury
that.
Department is open. Central Bank is open. Department of Civil Aviation is open. Belize Airport Authority is open. Belize Marketing and Development Corporation. Social Security Board is open from 9 to 4. Carl Kushner Memorial Hospital Authority is open. And all municipal bodies are open. That's town councils and city councils and diplomatic missions.
Yeah.
They are now allowed to be open. When I say they're open, meaning they're allowed to be open.
Yeah.
The good thing about the law is that although they said you could open from 9 to 4, you may choose that I only want to open till 2. Nothing is wrong with that.
You can
Or-
still
you can choose, but it's not like a case in San Pedro where they tell you
Yeah.
the new time. No, you can choose, but you can't open outside of the law. You
Can I?
can't open before 8 o'clock or before 5 o'clock or before 9 o'clock,
Yeah.
depending on which category.
Audrey, let's talk about Regulation 12 because that is also important for people to know. So if you are a business that's considered essential service or if you're approved, now there are certain expectations that you will ensure take place.
Yes,
And one of the
yes.
key ones was that the shift from social distancing, first it was 3 feet, 3 to 6 was the general advice, but now it's
Yes.
officially 6
It's
feet.
6 feet. 6 feet.
So what does that
And-
say the businesses have to do?
Well, they have to go back and measure. Two things important there. They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
You're to keep a distance of 6 feet, but also they give you the liberty to decide how many people will be in your establishment.
At one
And
time.
you need to decide that based on the size of your establishment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you're a big store, like let's say Belize and Sayview and even Publix, they're fairly big. So they have to calculate at 6 feet how much people could move around there without bumping into each other.
Yeah.
And then you don't have to play it close. So before we had a regulation that said not more than 10
10.
persons.
Yeah.
But now clearly in the big stores it can be more than 10 persons. And in
Yeah.
the very small ones it can't even be 10. Like I like what the pharmacists they do. The pharmacists have locked their stores, put only a screen window,
Yeah, serve you.
and then they mark your distance. So they only have to go back and remark their distance and ensure that people keep that distance.
Yeah.
So that is important.
And that's both for
because-
inside and outside. So businesses are expected to have some level of control for the people who are waiting to go in.
Right. And I'm hoping they do it, Marlene, because what the signal to me from the government is that they're saying, look, we are trusting you all to be responsible.
Yeah, that's true.
Because they could have just cut it down and say strictly this. This is the number. It says the establishments determine the number of persons that may be permitted in the establishment at any one time, provided that the determined number is proportionate to the square footage of the
Yeah.
establishment and the social distancing protocols to be observed. So this is where the establishments have to show that they are mature, they're responsible, and that they can be trusted. You've been entrusted with a responsibility that I hope you can comply with.
But
That is
not
what
just show, because I think the regulations actually say that you must have markers with the social distancing measure.
I don't see it in here, but it was previously.
Yeah.
They only said that within 24 hours, oh yes, it does, Marlene.
Yeah.
It's at D.
Yeah.
Within 24 hours of the commencement of these regulations, they must place distance markers 6 feet apart. These regulations took effect Sunday. They were signed the 25th, which is Saturday, to take effect Sunday. So and it was announced since Friday, the Attorney General had announced it.
Last Friday, yeah.
Yeah, they had hinted to it from Thursday, Friday, certain details were given. So you had Saturday to do it. And I think most of the established businesses are doing it.
Yeah.
And people have to, and it's good for people to know so that they know when they go, if an establishment hasn't done it,
Yeah.
that they need to bring it to their attention.
Or,
You
I
know,
mean, you never know that you'll come up under a spot check or a police check and there isn't a marker. It's because the regulations say there has to be something, whether it's spray paint
Spray
or,
paint or tape.
you dig it into the
Yeah.
wood or tape, whatever it is, to say
Yes.
that this is your 6
This is a
feet
new marker, yeah.
distance that you're making people adhere to. So,
And I was reading the 6 feet is not just a random number.
no.
The 6 feet is because studies have shown how far when you speak,
Your
the
droplets. yeah.
droplets would go within a certain time,
Yeah.
how the distance and so.
Yeah.
So that's important.
And one last thing, it also, because now when we're talking in this era of people working from home, what I found interesting in the 62 regulations was that it talks about how people can work from home, their availability hours and things like that. Because we haven't really, I know the last time you were here, we were talking labor laws, but more about losing your job or whether you get paid. But now we're going to be looking at a new a new situation where people are working remotely and we don't have that many guidelines as to what's allowed, what's not allowed.
Well, you know what I like? The law specifically says that if they operate pursuant to the regulations, that means the businesses that are allowed to open, both essential and approved one, it says they shall implement measures to allow the employees to operate remotely where that business is one which the duties of the employees are capable of being performed from the employee's place of distance. So I like that because it even goes a step further and says that the employer should not be forcing the employee to be in office if they can work from home. Of course, it means that the employees have to take responsibility too, and be on call or be doing what they should be doing at their desk from home as is required. They need to report to work as if virtually, as if they're in their office, and they need to follow the instructions of the employers. Or not, then they deserve to be reprimanded, and possibly, depending how erroneous it is, they can be dismissed. So they have a responsibility. Let me tell you, COVID-19 is teaching us to take personal responsibility.
Of course, it is.
At all levels, and I hope that people realize that if they really want the government to curtail the stringency of the lockdown, they have to show that they are responsible. We have to show we are responsible. All of us have to cooperate. And remember, the new norm, even when we don't have a state of emergency, the new norm might just be that we still have to wear masks. That we'll always still have to be washing our hands. That we still have to keep the distance. That there might be certain social distancing measures that will remain in place, although we're not in lockdown. They might even tell you how much people can be in a private vehicle. In Merida right now, because the death toll has gone up and so has the number of confirmed cases, they're saying in any private vehicle, only one person at a time, and that you must wear masks in public. They have gotten stricter with their rules. We are hoping to get more lax, but we'll only get more lax if we show that we can be trusted.
So let's talk about social gatherings then, because those are still very much restricted.
I know it's the hardest one. We all want to gather and socialize, and not to take like.
And you're not talking like party, you're just talking about visiting friends or family. That's the hard part.
But over the weekend, they had to stop people who were at the rivers and the seafronts taking a swim. I mean, I wanted to take a swim, and I know I can't. I have to just imagine it.
One hose, Audrey. One hose. Swim right down and
And maybe eventually they will allow you to go. But they might have to make provisions. What time you could go, how many can go at a time, stuff like that. But for now, no, you can't go socialize. You can't be visiting and partying with people. I mean, you can have a party at your house with the people who already live there.
Let's be clear, with only the people who live there. Because I do want to point out that I know the police made one arrest very recently for a person who hosted a restricted event. And that can be that you have people over at your house that don't live there. It could be, I think they included things like meeting or private social clubs or, so there are all these, basically, we're just not supposed to be congregating.
No.
Even if we're getting together to pray.
And you know what's the sad part or the downside to all of that is that apart from the partying, we are used to having big funerals, wakes, and all of that. And right now, sadly, we are not there to mourn with people when they have a funeral. I mean, that has remained at 10 in the previous ones. And it's still the situation. That part has not changed. Thank God for Facebook and social media and everything. We see some funeral homes that are doing it live for the families. And we see that that's the downside, but at least there's a technology to help us.
But it's a good time to have a low budget wedding because it's only 10 people allowed.
I know, and nobody can be vexed with you.
Nobody can vex.
I was teasing a relative of mine. I said, "This is the time to get married. One easy thing, 10 people. That's it.
No hurt feelings over not being invited."
True.
Right. But before we go, in case we're going, this one is very
Yes.
important. Casinos remain closed down,
Yes.
people. Bars remain closed down, people. All establishments, like, for entertainment and
Yeah.
discotheques are closed down.
Yeah, they're closed.
The top
Spas,
one that
beauty
remains,
salons,
Gyms.
gyms,
Yes.
barber shops.
salons, yeah.
those are the tough ones, I know. And but it's important for people to know that spas, beauty salons, and barbershops are closed, simply because I have seen again on Facebook the audacity of people to post on Facebook that they're opening in San Pedro again. Carlos Cutts is one of the main ones, and he's one bullying me on Facebook. He puts up that appointments can be taken, that he's open back for business. You cannot do that.
Yeah. It
I
says
am saying-
establishments to remain closed until further notice. In fact, I do want to go further. In conversation with the Director of Health Services, he said most likely the first to close will be the last to open. And we know that these were some of the
First to close.
the gaming institutions, the beautician shops and barber shops and gyms and night entertainment. Those were the first to close.
Well, they're extremely close contact, so they,
It's
it was a
very
must.
close contact,
Yeah.
yes. But my suggestion is that we eventually have to open, and my suggestion would be a soft way to start opening them is to allow them to do appointments and limit how much appointments per day,
And wear a mask.
but with strict measures that you have to wear a mask, that you
Yeah.
have to have your head tied,
Let me-
almost as though you have on a PPE, that you have to wear gloves, and for each client after you finish, you have to
You
change
dispose
those
of your,
gloves.
yes.
I wanna go further on that one before we close, because that's an area for concern. The regulations currently say that the transportation, you must wear a mask.
Oh, yes.
Certain business institutions, I think government departments, in the regulations say you must wear a mask. But that is not a general provision. It's not saying any business outside that you must wear
No.
a mask.
No.
So my question is, we have seen and heard many stories where people say they're being denied entry into an establishment because they don't have a mask. Is that allowed?
It's not allowed. It's not allowed. But I think the confusion is, Marlene, because I myself was confused, is because when the Prime Minister had announced that there will be new measures and things might be lax, he made it clear that one of the provisions that they would have been making is to make the wearing of masks in public mandatory. Those weren't that his exact words, but he gave that message. At the time when I heard that, I said, you know what? I know there's controversy of whether the mask is good or not, but it's not a bad idea. So he left that message. But a lot of people did not go and listen to the Attorney General or did not read the SI. So they believe that the mask is mandatory. I personally believe it's a good idea. But if it's not in the law, you cannot deny people entry without the mask.
Yeah.
You
What
can't
I'm
enforce
saying is the SI doesn't say it. There's no regulation that says you can deny entry to an
No.
institution
No.
because somebody doesn't have on a mask.
No,
Yes,
you
they
can't.
can for a bus, because
You can't.
that's what the
It says
regulation says for
only
bus.
say every person traveling on public transportation shall wear a cloth or other face mask or face mouth covering during the duration of the travel.
Yeah.
I don't think that part was really properly thought out, because you don't want just any cloth. I mean, if you go look at all the studies, and I like Dr. Marcelo Koyi, always posting key information. And one of the things he had posted was the different types of masks and the effectiveness of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Certain cloth, just cloth for cloth's sake, will not
Will
be
not help
effective.
you. Yeah.
Even the sports
so it
fishing
defeats-
sash that
it defeats
people
the
use.
purpose.
Yeah.
And so my advice to the government would be, look, the verdict is still out on pro or against mask. Make up your mind. If it's going to be mask, just make it across the board.
But
In
if a
public
business
places,
place makes it their
in pub-
policy, I guess it's just a clarity. Because let's say I don't have one, I forgot one, whatever it is. I mean, I think it's not, the question isn't about whether or not the masks are effective or whatnot. Right now, it's a personal choice, with the exception of
Bus.
public transportation.
Right.
There it is mandatory. But if I reach to the front of the bank line and then the security says to me, I'm giving an example, and they say, sorry ma'am, you can't come in because you don't have a mask, and I don't have one, are they allowed to set an individual policy like that and dis- and disallow me from entering and
No.
conducting business?
No, they can't. They can't. Because right now we are governed by a state of emergency and only what's in the regulation is allowed. They may have good intention, but they can't. And that's why I'm asking the government to clarify it. And I'm saying it's not a bad idea to say that you have to have some kind of mask
Yeah.
when you go into a public place.
Or once
Because
you leave your
remember,
house, yeah? In the
no
US,
matter how
we
much-
see that if you leave your house, you have to wear a mask. In some states, they have made those regulations, not in all.
And we should teach people how to wear a mask. You can't just be touching it all over and whatever. There's a way to wear a mask.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that that's it. I mean, we're still in a learning process.
Yeah.
We still have a long way to go. To me, there's good news on the horizon. The good news is that while our government had started from a position that, oh, we don't need to get strict yet, they got strict with regulations earlier than they had said and anticipated. So that was good news.
That was
Yeah.
good, yeah.
The other good news was that we only have 2 clusters.
Yeah.
And based on the mapping, we were able to identify other people. The other good news is that although we have limited testing, we are not finding additional persons infected. So it seems that we are having it controlled to a certain extent. The other good news is that the Prime Minister announced that we are not opening our borders until
Yes.
June. So that's so that we don't import anymore,
Yeah.
right? So those are some of the good news.
Yeah.
The bad news is that I know that people are getting depressed and they're getting frustrated. So I know that's not easy. Some of us can adapt easier and others can't. I am one of those who find it difficult to just stay locked in. I'll confess it's very difficult. So I empathize and I know it's not easy.
But it's most important that we keep up the work, because we are here because of early lockdowns. We are here because of vigilant surveillance, but we're also here because by and large, we can all pat ourselves on the back that we have been, for the most part, adhering to social distancing, stay-at-home orders, and we hope that, we encourage everyone to continue. That's the only way we can stay on this track,
Right.
because COVID-19 isn't gone.
It's not
We're
gone.
just keeping it at bay
Yeah.
for as long as possible.
We will never be in the all clear as long as there's not a vaccine.
There's not a
I want
vaccine,
people
yeah.
to get that in your mind. We may be in a way distancing ourselves from it, or we're taking strict measures to try and keep it away from our boundaries, our country. But as long as people move around, as long as there's going to be travel, as long as we already had it within our circles, there can be a second wave, there can be up to a third wave.
Yeah.
We need to understand that as long as all of that is happening, that we, the people, are not safe. We're not in the all clear.
Yeah. And even as the regulations are relaxed, we will still be expected to maintain social distancing, to wash our hands as much as possible, and to, whether it's wear a mask, don't touch your face, use proper cough etiquette. Like, all of these things will have to continue.
And nothing is wrong if you take your own personal extra measures.
Yeah.
Like when I reach home, once I'm out, I have to take off all my clothes
Yeah.
and shift off. Like I take that's good.
Yeah.
Take your own personal measures. But in the meantime, the bad news is that we don't know what will happen yet come 1st May. But we can make that good news if we show that we are responsible and we comply.
Yeah, it's on all of us. It's on all of us.
Audrey, it's always great having you. I know there's a lot to discuss, but we got in quite a bit as well, and we appreciate you sharing some clarity on the regulations. Surely we'll have to take a look at the next set of regulations to come in 2 days.
Yes, Marlene, and not only that, we need to go back to address employment matters. There was a very controversial, unclear, and confusing press release issued through the Labor Department, and the amount of questions I'm getting, it's so unfair to people. But I know we don't have time for that. Keep that on your radar. That release only created more problem than clarification.
Okay,
All
so
right,
we
thank you.
definitely are going to be looking at that one soon. Thank you so much, Audrey. We really appreciate
And
it.
thank you for having me.
And
You
stay
all have
safe.
a blessed day.
You too.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
And there you have it, a look at what the current regulations say. As we said, we want to be very clear. This is SI-62, which actually comes to an end in 2 days. May 1st, we'll see what the new regulations are. That is the extended state of emergency for 2 months, and that was just passed yesterday evening.
My thing is that if we continuously want good news, it's on all of us to adhere to the laws, adhere to the rules, and social distance yourself from everybody.
That's right.
All right.
All right, we got to go ahead and take a break. And of course, to be able to keep ourselves reminded as to what the potential threats can be, and just to understand the experience of Belizeans across the world. We're going to have a Belizean perspective from someone living in Paris, and he tested positive for COVID-19, is completely asymptomatic, and also lost a friend due to COVID-19. So it's a really interesting story. We're going to get to that after the break, so please stay tuned.
This COVID update was brought to you by Fulltech Systems, your technology center, where you'll come for the price, but stay for the service.